I'm more of a CD neighborhood type guy, multifamily, and we've taken that to another level where I get rid of all the living space and I put in bedrooms. I rent out a shared living space, shared kitchen, shared bathroom with bedrooms for $600 a month, everything included.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odom and Steven Silverman.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odom, along with Steven Silverman. Steven, what's the good word? What's been happening?
Eric, we're real estate brokers, so, we're active in the market. I mean, it's been interesting for both of us to see how we're still getting inquiries and requests for information and people buying from out of state. Florida is continuing to grow in all aspects.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we're getting a lot of folks and the COVID is probably accelerating a movement that was occurring prior to COVID, that folks are fleeing states with high income tax and looking to relocate their businesses here. And we've just got notification, or we saw in the news recently about Goldman Sachs and Oracle, for example, is moving from California to Texas. A lot of these companies that are operating in higher tax states are now have a lot of their employees working from home and realizing that they don't really need those expensive offices in those states with in high tax areas. So I would suspect that we're going to see more of that going forward, that we're going to see more folks that are going to be interested in companies that are interested in expediting their move to the Sunshine State. As we've said repeatedly, we do not believe there is any place in the country that's better to be conducting business if you're in the real estate market than Florida. You're very blessed to be participating in what's going on here. Stephen, we had some comments here recently on the website. Just like to read one. And
was it about you again? Those bad comments?
No, I trust me. The comments that I like to read are the ones where they criticize you. The ones that are criticizing me, I just brush under the rug. Man, this name, I'm sorry, Anthony, but I'm gonna butcher it. Jolich, Anthony Jolich, and he's talking about the Anna Bozovic episode with Miami. And he says, great episode, informative information for the Miami market. It looks like there is overbuilding in the Miami market, but now the demand is there thanks partly to COVID. Again, the overall trend, Florida is headed in the right direction. Of course, many of us psychologically are still recovering from 2008, 2009 housing disaster crash. But if we can get past this and understand Florida is becoming reborn into something else, more diversification, tech jobs, etc. This is one of the few podcasts on the South Florida real estate market. I would encourage you guys to keep going. We really appreciate your work. Anthony, we really appreciate you taking the time to write that very kind review. It's very helpful for us, whether you go onto our website, whether you go on to the iTunes store or Stitcher or any of your Google podcast distribution channel to write reviews, because it is very challenging for us to find good guests that add to your real estate investing career. And we have to work very, very hard. And a lot of folks want to, when they're investigating whether they're going to invest time with us, they look at reviews and they see what people are saying. And what you're doing, when Anthony and others that have done so, is helping to continue to get great guests as we move forward. So if you've not done so already, we don't ask for much out of our listeners, but we do ask, if you've not done so, to please go on and complete a review. It's extraordinarily helpful for us as we try to produce a good show for you guys. Stephen, today we're talking Sarasota a little bit.
We're talking Sarasota, and we're talking a way that society's changed over the last decade or last couple of decades. I mean, we've seen a move away or a move towards more shared kind of experiences, whether it's shared office space, whether it's shared ride. And today we'll talk to an investor who's pivoting in another direction to take advantage of this and make himself money and do some good for society.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, part of the show is we try to get folks from around the state that give us a little bit of a window into their own market. And hopefully that's providing a service that you're not getting from other podcasts around the country. We talk general real estate terms, but we always try to pepper in a little bit of the local market. And we haven't done anybody from Sarasota in a while. So it's good to have our guest on. Stephen, are there any other housekeeping items that we need to cover before we move on to our guest?
Let's move on to our guest. Today we have with us David Drewett. David is the owner of Property Hero. He and his company have closed more than 500 real estate transactions in Florida. David is a graduate of the New York Military Academy and New England College. He is very knowledgeable in most facets of real estate transactions and is known for paying top dollar for investment properties. David is an investor in multifamily and does fix and flips. David, welcome to the Invest Florida show.
Thanks so much for having me.
David, really appreciate you investing the time with us today. Have to put a little caveat out to start with that one of our interns, Max, your son, is working with us, and he's the one who made the connection. So we appreciate your time and obviously appreciate Max making the introduction.
Yeah, that's great. I'm real proud of Max.
No, he's definitely a good kid. We're happy he's here and lucky to have him. David, why don't you start? I'm sorry, Steve, were you going to say something?
No, so I was probably going to say the same thing you were. I say, David, I know that you're a real estate broker, but I'd love to know how you got started in real estate investing.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I've been licensed since November 17, 2004. I was in California for 5 or 6 years, had a technology company, moved to Florida, sold that company, and decided, how am I going to support my family? And I thought, real estate is a real hot commodity here in Florida. So I thought that would be a good direction. And I've always loved sales and enjoyed always looking at houses. So I decided to get licensed in November of 04. And, the wonderful thing about real estate, it's got a very broad spectrum, as you guys know. I mean, you can do all kinds of things in real estate. You can do developer, commercial, residential. It's got a wide range. So because it has such a wide range, I feel like I've done pretty much a lot of different things in real estate, commercial development, the whole deal. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been good to me so far. Unfortunately, I did survive the market crash, as you guys, right, which was difficult. But, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you do what you got to do to put food on the table.
Yep. Tell me, you're in Sarasota. So tell me, you had, obviously, you could have gone anywhere in Florida. Why did you select Sarasota to start your real estate business?
I just always loved Sarasota. I could have gone to bigger markets like you guys in Tampa. I got involved with a lady named Judy Green, broker of Signature Sotheby's, and she brought me on, and we targeted the higher end residential. And, that was a really good space for me, and it was a great learning curve, great training, and I learned quite a bit. Residential homes on Longboat Key, as you know the area, Lido, Bird Key, Casey Key, all over $1 million. I was attracted to those houses probably because I just loved the way they looked. But yeah, it was really interesting. I learned a lot. I enjoyed the residential space quite a bit until we got crushed in our market crash. Not too many people were buying $1 million homes at that time. I had about 40 listings over $1 million each, because that's what I was told to go out and do, and that's what I did. And then, the market just stopped, as you guys know. Nothing was selling, and I had to kind of reinvent the game to keep food on the table and pay the bills. So I personally got into wholesaling. I got into getting just the opposite of the spectrum, from high-end, high-dollar residential single-family to distressed I call them distressed assets, if you will. You know, those people that maybe had a death in the family or were going through a divorce or abandoned or vacant property. I got into that market, and the reason I did the shift is because, like I said, the $1 million homes weren't selling, and it's very difficult as a realtor to sit and wait for your house to sell. You know, getting the listing is one thing. Now you got to go to work and sell it. And to sit and wait for a property to sell, I didn't enjoy it all. So the residential space, I like the wholesale because I could get a discounted property, almost make as much money on it and sell it in 3 days.
And so were you flipping the property like under contract, or were you closing?
Yeah, he was wholesaling. Yeah.
I was selling paper, as you guys know. As today, they got a lot of wholesalers in this business now. Back then, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, there wasn't so many people in the business. But what I found is a little niche to kind of carry me through the market crash was just finding that distressed asset, putting it under contract, and then selling the paper for $10,000 or $15,000 profit to another investor. I did that for probably 10 years.
Wow. And so you're doing mostly, at what point did you start down the line of the type of investment that you're doing now? You're doing mostly multifamily, correct?
Yeah, I do multifamily now. My fix and flip and my wholesaling, I don't really do that anymore. It's a good way to, in my opinion, it's a good way to make a quick $600,000 for somebody. But then you realize that you got to pay capital gains on all that money you made.
Oh, yeah.
And you're always going out, and you have to, kill what you're going to eat every night, if you will. But being a little older now and in the real estate market, I've segued over to the commercial multifamily, if you will. And, I rent out my properties and enjoy a nice cash flow every month with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think all wholesalers end up in the same place. It's sort of a means to make a living for a while, but then you're a rat on a wheel and you have to continue to find that deal. And so eventually all wholesalers transition over to more of a cash flow model.
Exactly.
So what kind of properties, multifamily properties, are you targeting for investment?
Right now, just to talk about the Sarasota market for just a minute, the Sarasota market is, I look at it like Candyland. And you guys understand the market cycle pretty well. But we're on a cycle right now where it's a seller's market, and we're on the top end of that market, in my opinion. So for a town like Sarasota that is, I consider it Candyland, it's very hard to find a distressed asset, a deal per se, that all us investors love, because that's how we make our money, in a town like Sarasota. Now, if there's a market crash, it's a great time. If we're crashing, it's a great time, in my opinion, then to go back in and buy in Sarasota, and then you can ride the market back up. I know several guys, when we were during that market crash, they did nothing but buy waterfront, didn't do much to the property, rented it out, rode the market back up, and now they're getting, 5-6 times that money back, and have really not done any investing in the property at all. That's what Sarasota looks like to me. Yeah. And Sarasota to me mimics like a Colorado.
Right.
If you look at the market cycle of Colorado, the time to buy in Colorado is during the market crash, and I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, and then you ride that cycle back up for 5-6 years, and you make your money back. So for me, today, there's another town right next to me, Manatee County, Bradenton. I'm more of a CD neighborhood type guy, multifamily, and I still do those old, digging for dollars. We call them dig leads. I'm still looking for the distressed asset in Bradenton, but this time I'm not looking to flip it. This time I'm looking to get it in a rentable condition, and we've taken that to another level where I get rid of all the living space and I put in bedrooms. I rent out a shared living space, shared kitchen, shared bathroom with bedrooms for $600 a month, everything included.
Wow.
So what I've done with my model is I've went from basically 15 to 40 rooms. I rent out rooms, and I manage the properties myself. And I've noticed a couple things. There's a lot of guys out there, including vets, that have SSI, they have disability, they're getting an income. These guys can't afford to put first, last, and security into a place. It's too much money. They can't afford to put the $1,500 or $2,000 down. There's a lot of good people out there with a steady income that, you know, I do a $300 move-in fee in your first month's rent. I get $850 up front, and I get $585 a month, everything included, internet, water, everything. Fully furnished, 32-inch flat screen TV. Each room has a digital locking door, but you share a kitchen and a bathroom. Mm-hmm. I've tripled my income with the model, and I get calls all day long for people looking for a place to live.
So is there some kind of art to creating the mix of tenants in a building like that? I mean, do you try and do them in the same kind of age group? I imagine that a lot of young people would like that, but also middle age. And I could imagine it could sometimes be pretty difficult.
Well, there is a niche to it, and you learn your own market after a while. I can't go out and tell you exactly what I look for. I don't want to be, I don't want to single out any age or any sex, but there is a perfect tenant that I always look for, and it's usually the older gentleman that's got a disability check that is just looking to lay his head and not cause any trouble. I'm not looking for, younger people who haven't been through the cycle of life yet. Let's just say that. I get a lot of my tenants from the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army is recently in Bradenton. They've had guys there for 6 or 7 years who get a steady check every month, and the Salvation Army is pushing them out. And what I've been told is they've done something, they've got to deal with the prison, and they're taking inmates and getting paid by the state now. So I get a lot of my tenants from the Salvation Army. I have one lady, the Salvation Army's paid her whole rent for a year.
Oh, wow.
They send me a check every month, and I get it direct from the Salvation Army. So I think the Salvation Army has different funding for different people, but for a guy like me, that's my ROI is off the chart, and I'm getting a steady check every month, if that makes sense.
What are you doing about common area maintenance and cleaning, David? Do you have somebody who's coming in to do that, or is it to the tenants that are expected to do that?
The tenants do that. And what I find, that's a very good question, because that's one of the number one complaints that, Johnny doesn't do the dishes after he cooks. And what I've noticed is I used to jump in and try to solve every issue, and I don't do that anymore. I have them work it out. They all live together, so they all want to get along. And I've noticed in each apartment or building, they set the kind of their own pecking order, and that usually someone rises up and is the one that cleans. And every single, apartment I have, the one person will rise up, and that's the person that generally does most of the cleaning. So I try not to get involved, because as soon as I get involved in everything, my phone starts to blow up.
Oh, of course. They're going to have every dispute.
And I don't mean to sound disheartened in any way, but I say if you have a problem with a tenant and, you feel threatened, call 911.
Yeah.
And I'm a landlord that's there. I'm usually there 3 to 4 days a week, and I do little repairs and, I fix that. And I am very hands-on. Even though the cash flow and the ROI is exceptional, I don't know if there's a so-called property manager out there that could really manage this effectively. Maybe I'll grow into that. I don't know, but I'm not there yet.
And do you do leases, or do you go on a month-to-month type of basis?
That's a great question. And I've had my attorney look over my agreement, and I do what I call a room agreement. So they waive the right to the standard landlord tenant laws in the state of Florida. And if there's an issue and I need to get someone out, we do a 7-day notice. And I have my attorney handle all that. I try not to get involved in running down to the city and filing my paperwork, Because honestly, my stuff, it's usually not an eviction on a payment issue. It's an eviction on, someone all of a sudden decides to, start drinking at 12 o'clock to 3 and won't stop. So then I do a 7-day notice and have them out immediately because they broke the rules.
And it's like, what are some of those rules that you have? You say drinking's one of them. Is it no drinking in the house, or is it just like restricted at times? Or so, like, what are some of the rules that are important to maintain this business model?
Yeah, well, I can't stop someone from drinking, but basically no loud noises after 10. You're not allowed to have, and here's the funny thing. Just to step back, what I noticed is when I had these buildings, what I noticed was I would rent a full apartment to somebody. Maybe $1,200 a month, kitchen, bathroom. Maybe it's 1,000 square feet or something like that. And they would pay their own electric. And what would happen is they would start bringing in other people.
Of course.
And they would say, oh, it's just a friend. It's very hard to prove to a landlord that this guy is now he's not subletting, but I got 5 people living there and they're all splitting up the rent. And then what happens with that is there's 2 or 3 people that can't pay the rent. So now I have 3 or 4 people in the apartment taking showers, using the electricity. And quite honestly, I got sick of it. And I couldn't find a way to really monetize it, if you will. So I said, if that's going to happen, then I might as well get paid for it. And that's when I took away the living space and put in bedrooms. I said, now an apartment can have 4 or 5 people in it, but at least, they can all use the electric and they can all use the water and they can all have a TV, but now I'm going to get paid for it.
So really the main common area is really the bathroom and the kitchen and maybe outside. That's it.
That's it.
How about electricity and other utilities, David?
I pay for that.
So that's part of the rent that they pay. And you concerned about they're cranking the air down to 59 at night?
Oh, they do. Yeah, plan on that AC being cranked down as low as it can go, 24/7. Plan on them never shutting off the lights. Plan on the TV going 24/7. But if you're getting 585 for a room and you have 4 or 5 rooms in an apartment, that's okay. They can do that.
Yeah, if you got a couple $100 extra in electric, then it's not a big deal. It'd be covered.
Are there any code issues regarding those kind of changes?
Well, I'm not going in and buying a house, a single family house, and putting in 10 bedrooms. I'm capitalizing on a multifamily building that's already had, 13 units. So I may have one apartment with 3 bedrooms and I may have added an extra bedroom and then I just rent out the bedrooms separately. So I've gone through the city and I've gone to the attorney and actually, and I don't know about everybody else's town, but in this town, they're happy to see, buildings get painted and properties getting fixed up. They like to see, helping people get off the street and finding an affordable place to live. So
you've got around the density problem by staying in the multifamily space.
Exactly right.
Tell me about the areas that you like in this. It's Sarasota and Manatee that you're investing primarily, correct?
Yes, that's absolutely right. So, I like to look at, as you guys, I think you look at the neighborhoods as A, B, C, and D, if you will. Sure. D being a war zone. I don't like war zones, but I'm just above a war zone is what I look for. And I'm just looking for low hanging fruit, distressed multifamily, something we can go in and fix up and make nice and add some bedrooms. And we just rent out those bedrooms because there's definitely a need for it.
Have you got somebody helping you with the leasing, or are you going out and showing all the spaces yourself?
That's a revolving door, and I'll be very upfront. You get all kinds of different people. It's very hard to find that responsible person. So I had one, put it that way, but it looks like as of today, I'm doing it myself again. But, part of the reason I got into this business is because I like my own time. I like to manage my own time. And I didn't realize at 54 how important that is. Instead of punching a clock, I want to be able to schedule my own day. And what is that worth? So if I'm going to show, people will call for a room and I'll just tell them when I'm going to be there. And if I'm there, I'm working on the property. I'm working on a project. So let's say, Tuesday and Thursday are my scheduled days to go to Bradenton to, fix some issues with the building, maybe do some construction. I try to kill two birds with one stone, and, I can meet you there either Tuesday or Thursday between 9 and 5. That's kind of how I handle. Otherwise, if you don't take the bull by the horns per se, you'll be running down to Bradenton every 5 minutes to show rooms.
So I have a question to ask. In these investments where you've converted to the higher density multifamily, have you ever sold one of those investments?
It's a great question. And I came close to selling them 2.5 years ago. And for whatever reason, the investor couldn't get her finances in order. And I am so grateful that it didn't sell now.
Yeah,
because with this new model, you take a property that was, grossing $3,000 a month to $8,000 a month. Why would I ever want to sell that?
No, exactly. Particularly if it's moving smoothly.
And I've got a property management software I use that I love. And it's pretty cool, actually, because, you get some of these people that don't have bank accounts. They get these SSI cards. There's a 7-Eleven right down the street. I give them a barcode that's directly related to their room. And you guys probably have seen this. They go to 7-Eleven. The cashier scans the barcode. They pay the rent in cash. She gives them a receipt, and then those funds get electronically transferred to our account.
What's the software you're using, David?
Well, I use a company called Rentech, and through Rentech, they have an alliance with a company called PayNearMe.com. And now PayNearMe is affiliated, and I did some research on this. It's the only company that's affiliated with CVS, 7-Eleven, and there's like 3 or 4 other convenience stores. And what happens is that, like I said, the tenant can walk to CVS or 7-Eleven, give the cashier, the cash. She'll scan the barcode, and those funds go directly into our account. And I think the cost is $3.99. It costs my tenant $3.99 to do that. And then I get an email right away that, I get an email and it automatically debits my property management software that the payment's been made. And it's fantastic. When you have 40 rooms and it's, the 4th of the month, and that's not a lot. I mean, you guys do 200, 300, 400. I'm just a small town little guy here, kind of a one-man show, if you will. But it sure does make everything nice and convenient.
Awesome. So have you thought of other ways to maybe increase this model? It's just interesting because it's a hybrid model. And so what you're doing is you're increasing flat cash flow really dramatically. And the reason I'd asked the question about selling is because it's harder to find people who would understand how to manage and or be investors in those properties. But I guess when the time ever comes to sell, you'll be able to find someone, or worse to worse, convert it back because you'll have the appreciation.
Right. Or, it's the right buyer who, doesn't care and wants the cash flow.
Yeah, because they're relatively easy to manage. I really take my hat off to you. I think it's really interesting to see someone go off in a different direction like that and create value.
Tell us about investors that are just getting into the market. What advice would you give them, knowing what you know now and all the years of experience that you've gained a lot of knowledge?
Here's the number one thing that changed my model for a new guy. Get a guy who is looking for a nice return who will loan you some money. Get a guy who is willing to take a chance. You know, his getting 1% in the CD isn't working, and you're willing to pay him, I don't care, 10 to 15%. It doesn't matter. 15%. Pay him 15% on a flip and have him pay for your renovations as well, and give him 15% on the deal and go flip a couple houses and get your feet wet. And, you know, there's something about when you get your hands dirty with a single family, you start to understand, and I'm just talking from a single family perspective, you know, you start to understand the housing a little bit better when you get your, you know, lay some tile, you know, paint some walls, you know, really understand what it takes from a value perspective, you know, bring in a crew, work with them. But I think the best thing that I did was I formed a relationship with a couple just, you know, I had 2 lenders. That's all I needed. And that's all I wanted. And yeah, maybe I paid a little bit more, but when I had a deal, I made a phone call. I knew the money would be there because they knew I was going to pay them because we built up a rapport over time. They knew I always got good deals. And I didn't really need to go out and shop their rate. And you know what? When you're flipping a house and you do a 120-day flip from buying, fixing to selling, a 120-day model, you know, I think people are too focused on, oh, my God, I'm paying 15%. 15% for 3 months. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
It's 10% for 3 months. You know, I'm making $40,000. It's not that big of a deal. Make your investor die on the sword for your investor, protect your investor, bring some good deals to the table. But I think the most important thing that can change someone's life is get a relationship with someone who is willing to loan on real estate, to loan on the asset. I'll go find the deal if you're willing to loan on the asset, and I'll do the work and build that relationship with that person. That can change your life. Mm-hmm. Because that one person, once they get paid back, chances are they're not going to say no to the second one.
Right.
So if you made, you made a 30 or 40 grand on the first one, you do 4 deals a year. Doesn't have to be 10 or 20 or 50. You do 4 deals a year. That's $160,000 at a $40,000 profit. 4 deals. Mm-hmm. And that's working. You're going to work. In a lot of my model was 120 days, soup to nut. A lot of mine sold in 60. Mm. They sold quick because I priced them 5% below the MLS. A finished product, turnkey, done, ready to move in, and I'm 5% below. You don't probably have to do that in this market. You go above, right? Because stuff's selling so quick. But that's my advice: is spend some time building relationships with some people that are willing to lend and take a chance on real estate and you as an individual, and then you can really start to move mountains from that perspective. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Tell us, before we let you go, tell us a little bit about your tradesmen, your crew. How are you acquiring and managing those guys? Because it's tough in this market. You know, you lived through 2008 like we did, and we lost a significant portion of our trade craftsmen. And the result has been, and then you have the double whammy where, you know, the younger generation, they don't want to sweat. And so, you're not replacing these craftsmen fast enough. And everybody needs to go to college now, supposedly, and get a master's for some reason. I don't necessarily understand that, but you can make up $200,000 as an AC guy, but they want to go make $10 an hour and have $60,000 for the debt. I don't get it. But how are you acquiring and managing your crew?
So I've got 2 crews. One is kind of a get it done quick on the cheap crew, and then I've got another crew that's more of a finished crew. They're not my crews; they're subcontractors. But we built up a relationship. They have the same issues as everybody else. Is this guy going to pay me? And how quick is he going to pay me? Because they're out scrapping for nickels too. And for me, it's a little easier because I can keep a few guys busy just with what I have on my plate. I can give them odd jobs, 40 rooms. There's always, stoves, refrigerators, plumbing, AC. There's always little things that, and I can give a guy $15 an hour to do this, do that. So I can keep a lot of guys on the hook. And then if I have a bigger job where I want to add 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 bedrooms, then they go and then they get their little worker bees and we form a crew to bang it out. But I'm kind of constantly in that little rehab mode. So my ear's always to the street, and I got 3 or 4 worker bees that I'm always working with. So for me to pull together people in my little area, it's very easy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So David, if people want to reach you, maybe they have a deal for you or talk to you, how can they get hold of you?
My cell phone number is 941-544-8873. I have a little website hooked to my property. It's actually my property management software's website. The domain is bradentonrooms.com. You can kind of go there and see what maybe a few rooms look like. And then, it's very easy. People can click on that link, click on apply, $25 application fee. And that's it. I mean, part of me loves what you guys do. I would love to be in that more commercialized space.
Hard to get that kind of cash flow that you guys are getting.
Yeah, I'd like to do, I have that disease of more, so I would love to have more in Bradenton. And I hope to get, I'd like to get up to 100 actually, which I don't think is really that difficult.
David, really appreciate you spending time with us today. This has been very informative. It's interesting. Sarasota is one of those places. Do you know John Schaub?
Yes.
Yeah, John Schaub, to tell a little story about John. John Schaub started out of college working for my dad at Sears and decided pretty quickly that he was not cut out to earn a salary. He wanted to invest in real estate, and he moved over pretty quickly. His father was a manager of Moz Brothers, and so my dad and he were friends. And so anyway, John, we've had him on the show before talking about the type of real estate that he does. And, Sarasota, he's compared to some of the areas in California that are, sort of steady Eddie, high-end markets. And Sarasota's, it's a place that from a real estate value is pretty high. So it's interesting for me to listen to your story because you're providing affordable housing in a market that's not affordable. and I think this is doing really a great service for people, because otherwise, how are you going to get these people? I mean, anybody who's not been to Sarasota before knows. It's really expensive. These areas you're talking about on Siesta Key, Longboat Key, Bird Key. I mean, what is the square footage going for now? $350, $400 a square foot, $500? I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they just had a sale. They just had a sale out on Longboat Key. I think it was $16 million.
How can you're living in a market where things are so expensive in Sarasota that not everybody's making $100,000 a year. You got to figure out how to house folks that aren't fortunate enough to have the wealth that some of these folks that live on Longboat Key is. And I think you're providing a terrific service for them, and a good business for yourself. So it's a win-win, and that's the name of the game in real estate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's worked out well so far. It's just I think you hit the nail on the head. It's what does that tenant look like, and how do you monetize that? And, so we're seeing a better quality of tenant right now in today's market than I was, a year ago.
Interesting.
Obviously, because, it's like anything, the prices are going up and things are becoming more difficult to afford, just like you said. So people kind of spread out a little bit more into the affordable areas. So for a guy like me, I start to get, a guy who's driving a brand new car wants to rent a room to save a few bucks, but he's got a great job. Uh-huh. He's just conservative. I'm not getting the bum off the street, so to speak, which might have been 3 years ago, but today's market, it's good because people, they're feeling that pinch, and the economy is, like you said, it's so expensive right now. People want to save a few bucks. And a lot of these guys are like, you know what? I don't need much. I just want a place to lay my head.
Right.
You know, I'm working 9 to 5. I'm not going to be lounging around that long. And, you know, that's the perfect tenant that we try to get.
Awesome. Dave, really appreciate your time. You know, we have a beat on a young guy who's going to graduate pretty soon, needs a couple extra bucks that might want to put some more bandit signs out in the future for you too. So we can make that referral for you. He's not the most attractive kid on the planet, but he does work hard. He shows up every day. So.
Well, let me tell you that guy can throw out some serious bandit signs like nobody's business. We had, and I know we got to get off the phone here. I had that like, what was it? It was like 10 years. I had that minivan with the sliding door, and it was like, I'd open that and he'd be jumping out with those signs. It was great. He's a great kid and I'm real proud of him.
Yeah, no, he definitely is.
David, thank you. I love the solution that you're providing to a problem, and we appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, David. Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was David Drewett talking Sarasota and a unique strategy for multifamily. Stephen, what were your thoughts about talking with David?
Eric, I think David's really smart. I mean, he's found a way to serve a need for society. We badly need that in our world, and make money doing it at the same time.
Yeah, it's a win-win. You know, it's a tough market. I mean, he's living in a place where rent's just up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And it becomes tough for the working class to be able to afford to live in a place like Sarasota or downtown Tampa or anywhere else. And we've got to be able to figure out ways to provide that workforce housing. And Dave's figured out a great way to do that and make money at the same time. So it's a win-win. It's really a interesting story and interesting how he sort of arrived at the business model.
Well, Eric, think about it. I mean, what he's tapped into is something actually much larger. I mean, when we look at transportation, we're looking now at Uber and Lyft. All these
ride sharing,
all these
room sharing,
all these kinds of shared office spaces. Now it's shared living. It's just a different world we're living in, and he's figured out how to tap into that for the residential part, which is probably the most important part for real estate.
No doubt. Stephen, Dave was a great guest. Where else can our listeners hear great guests with great ideas?
So the place to go is our website, www.investfloridashow.com. Also download the app on your Android or Apple device and listen to it while you're mobile.
Guys, as always, we appreciate the time that you invest with us each and every episode. And until next time, hasta la vista.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Stephen Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show.